Elmina is a great town. Aside Egypt and Timbuktu, which was the center for education in the world, Elmina is the first city that the Europeans first set foot in the whole of Africa. Due to the structure of the town, it was well known as Little Europe. It's a beautiful town with great history. Way back 1471, the Portuguese started arriving here. At that time, there was civilization here already. There was a misunderstanding among the original 12 tribes in Ghana. This brought about wars. Tribes went to wars to defend their honor. At the arrival of the Europeans and the barter trade, many tribes saw a way to win their wars. The Europeans started giving out guns and other goods to win the trust of the locals. There was the need for the Portuguese to get a permanent structure to keep their goods. This is the Dutch cemetery. It dates back in 1806. The Europeans used to bury their dead both inside and outside the castle walls. But space was running out due to high mortality rates. Many died of diseases like malaria and other fatal ones. Our coastland was termed the white man's grave because of the high rate at which they were dying. According to Dutch records, the original gate carried this banner, literally meaning, "Gentle mother, take your children home." Right now, the cemetery serves as a burial site for prominent people whose outstanding contributions have helped with the success of the city of Elmina. Akwaba, you are welcome. I am Frederick Martin Kofi. Before we start with the tour, we are going to have a very short history about the castle. This is St. George's Castle, popularly called Elmina Castle, because it is located in Elmina. In the year 1482, the Portuguese built it. But way back 1471, the Portuguese, they started arriving here. And as they were coming, they were trading with our local people. That was the barter system of trade. It was all about exchanging goods for goods. The Portuguese were giving the locals guns, gunpowder, tobacco, liquor, and other materials, while the locals here were now exchanging them with gold, ivories, and other precious items. The rates at which the locals were giving the Portuguese the gold, it gave them a mindset that this whole land we have here is in abundance of gold. So they named the area Elmina, and that means the gold mine. But this was corrupted to be Elmina. Another name for this town is Edina. Edina too is a Portuguese word. The actual word is aldea, and that means a village. This was also corrupted to be Edina. Now, this must not tell us that Elmina never had a name at all before the Portuguese arrived here. Elmina's traditional name is Anomansa. It's a Ghanaian word that means Insa Enoma Onsa, water that never gets finished. In the course of the barter system of trade, there was that need for the Portuguese to have a permanent structure to keep their goods. So their leader, by name Captain Don Diego de Azambuja, he contacted our king, as at that time by name Nana Kwame Ansah I. Initially, the Portuguese, they wanted permission to be granted them to build a castle here. But the king was not willing at all to give out the land for them, because he thought deep into the future and realized that there could be cultural problems between the Portuguese and the locals. However, the Portuguese, they kept on persisting and giving assurance to the king that nothing bad will happen. The king got convinced and he gave out the land for them to build a castle. In those times, all the rooms we have on the ground floor here were used as warehouses. Now this is where they were keeping their incoming goods, like the clothes, the mirror, the guns, the gunpowder, and the outgoing ones, like the gold and ivories. But around the year 1501, when the slave trade started, all these warehouses we have down here were now converted to be the slave dungeons. That's where they were keeping the African captives. At a point in time, we had a minimum of 1,000 captives, 600 men and 400 women. I want us to have a look into how they were getting some of the captives into the slave dungeons. One of them was the Europeans captured some of them on their own. Now, this was forced capture. Another way was the Europeans were collaborating with some of the Africans. These were slave raiders to get the captives. But if we are to know of the biggest way by which they had many of them in here, then that was through the effects of inter-tribal wars. In Ghana right now, there are many tribes or ethnic groups, but no matter our differences, we all see ourselves as one people. But in those times, that was not the case, because usually there were wars among the tribes. For example, if tribe A defeats tribe B, most of the tribe B people were captured, and unfortunately, most of them found themselves in the slave dungeons, prisoners and victims of wars. There are a lot of stories that sometimes these slave raiders can set a whole village on fire. So while people were running for their dear lives, at gunpoint they were captured. In the year 1637, the Dutch fought the Portuguese in the castle and took over from them. In the year 1872, the Dutch transferred Elmina Castle to the British. The Portuguese stayed in this castle for 155 years. The Dutch stayed here for 235 years. The British were here for 85 years, until the year 1957, when Ghana had independence, and Ghana has been here for the past 62 years. As we stand right now, Elmina Castle. This is the oldest and the largest European building in the whole of sub-Saharan Africa. Elmina Castle right now is 537 years old, and we are still counting. So this is a very, very short history about the Elmina Castle. This is the inner courtyard. Initially, all these were warehouses during the barter trade. But around the year 1501, when the slavery started, all these warehouses were converted to be the female slave dungeons for the female captives. This female dungeon took the biggest number of women in this castle. Almost 150 women were lying on this floor. When they were here, there were two receptacles or containers. They placed one container at the corner over there, and they kept another one at the other corner there. The women over here, not only the women here, all the captives in the dungeons, they were expected to walk to them and go to toilets, into them urinate, into them and vomit into them. When we look at the health problems in the dungeons, it was so bad that many of them were so weak and could not get up from where they were and visit those two containers to ease themselves. Right now, the weak ones, they were practically going to toilets on this floor, urinating on the floor, vomiting on this floor. And when they had their menses, they had all their menstrual blood scattered all over the floor, mixed up with the toilet, vomit and everything, and they were still sleeping in them. We cannot imagine at all that kind of heat and the bad smell that was coming from the whole slave dungeons. That square hole over there, that was one of their sources of air. But that hole we have here was connected to this room. This is a magazine. In this magazine, they kept guns and gunpowder. Unfortunately, anytime there was a leakage, all the gunpowder toxic fumes was spread throughout the dungeons and pollute the air. This made matters very worse. This also explains why many died. Here, when you die, they take it up and dump you deep into the sea. Some of these wreaths we have here, normally, these are brought in by visitors to pay homage to the captives. The captives stayed in the dungeons for almost 3 months. Usually, their stay in the dungeons, it will depend on the availability of ships to take them away. And almost every 3 months, we had a minimum of 1,000 captives, 600 men and 400 women. This is rainwater, the cistern. Some of these pipes we have here were connected around the castle. So whenever it was raining, rainwater passed through them into the water reservoir. What we have here is not connected to the sea. This is rainwater. Soldiers in this castle, the traders and the governors, they were raping the women. Because in those times, they never came along with their own wives. Here, anytime a governor wanted to rape a woman, he stays up here. Let's have a look up here. That was governor's balcony. He stood up there and gave orders to the soldiers to open all the gates for all the female captives to come and line up here. He will select the woman he wanted to rape. After selecting the person, soldiers will fetch water here and bath them, because for the number of months they stayed in the dungeons, nobody brushed their teeth or washed them. They made them neat and took them to the governor's bedroom. We are going to see where the women were passing into the governor's bedroom. This is the private access to the bedroom of the governor. The female captives who were chosen walked up here to the bedroom. But there is a trap door up there. That door was lifted up so that the women will pass through into the bedroom. After this, they closed it. In the course of the tour, I will show you the trap door. After raping them, they brought the female captives back into the slave dungeons, still as captives. Because of these rape cases, some of the women got pregnant and could not stay in the dungeons. One thing was, the European merchants who came here, some of them built many stone houses outside the castle. And these pregnant women were sent outside to stay in those houses. But it was not only those women who got pregnant in this castle who were living in those stone houses. No, because when the European merchants arrived here, some of them, they had a good relationship with some of the local leaders in the town. They customarily married some of the local women and they stayed with them in those stone houses. When they gave birth and their children were 4 years old, their kids were brought back to the castle. In Ghana right now, there are some of our brothers and sisters. If you look at their skin color, it's very light. That is for them. They are not for black. For them too, they are not for white. It's a mixed race. Aside this, there are other European names on the coastland. There are names like De Heer, Van Dyke, Van der Poel, Da Costa, Da Silva. There is Vroom, Viola. We've got Wilberforce. We have Peterson, Hutchison, Johnson, Blankson, Robertson, Fryson, and in fact all the other saints. But it was not all the women who were selected here who moved up to the governor's bedroom. Some resisted and never took a step up there, and they punished them. Let's see that punishment. What we have here is a cannonball. In those times, there were 8 of these balls here. There were chains here. These chains were fixed at the feet of the women who never moved up to the governor's bedroom. When you are here in chains, no water for you to drink, no food for you to eat. And whether it was raining or shining, they were here in chains. This treatment was given to them so that the other female captives in the dungeons, as they see this, they become afraid never to resist the governor's orders. This cannonball we have here, it weighs 25 kilograms. You cannot run away. All these clothes and chains we observe here. On July 2016, there was an exhibition held in Elmina Castle with the title The Return of the Slaves. About 60 people from Ghana, Nigeria, UK and the US. Some also came from DR Congo. They came and slept here for 12 hours. So from 6 p.m. in the evening till 6 a.m. in the morning, they were here. They wanted to show how the slave trade was going on back in those times. And this is some of the clothes and chains they used for the exhibition. However, these are not the original materials, just for the exhibition 2016. Now, these are the original iron bars. In those times, these iron bars were all here. But because of the rusting, many of them are destroyed. So they have replaced them with these wooden bars that we have here. Now, this is the female slave exit. Whenever the ships arrived, all the female captives passed through here into the room of no return, where they were taken away. But in those times, all these iron rods we observe here, they were not here. They have just recently fixed them here to avoid accidents. Where we have the wood, there is this little drainage stretching down here into the room of no return. Initially, this was also not here. I was saying that the Portuguese connected some pipes around the castle, so whenever it was raining, rainwater will pass through them into the water reservoir. But as we stand right now, they don't use the water reservoir. So anytime it rains, rainwater will pass through and get outside the castle. The female slave exits. This is the male transit dungeon. Whenever the ships arrived, all the male captives will pass through here into the room of no return. We have an inscription here as in slave exit to waiting boats. This is the room of no return, and that is the door of no return. All the captives pass through this door. But in those times, the sea was close to the castle. But right now, it has receded or gone backwards. Small canoes were brought just close over here, and we had a staircase also here. Captives in chains were made to get down into those smaller canoes, and they were taken to the jetty where bigger ships were anchoring or docking. They took them there. All of them were arranged into those bigger ships, and they were taken away to countries like Europe, America, and the Caribbean islands like Jamaica and Haiti. Now, it is throughout this door and other reasons that explains why there are Africans scattered all around the world. This is one of the reasons. All these wreaths we have here, normally these are brought in by visitors to remember the captives. Historians are of the view that almost 12.5 million of the African captives were taken away from the African continent during the slave trade period. But around the year 1978, there was a conference in Haiti. It was on the transatlantic slave trade. At the end of the conference, they came out with a figure that almost 210 million of the African captives were taken away from the African continent. We can observe that the size of the door is very narrow. This must not tell us that some of the captives did not have weight. No, but the problem was because of the health issues in the dungeons, people sleep in their own toilets, many grow slim or lean, that they could pass through the door very easily. The room of no return and the door of no return. We observe a minute's silence for our departed captives. May their souls rest in perfect peace. All the rooms at the ground floor here are the male slave dungeons for the male captives. All the rooms at the first floor, these were residences for the soldiers, the merchants, and the missionaries. First floor. That second floor up there was for the deputy governor. And the last floor up there was for the governor himself. In this castle, your position will tell you where you have to stay. That is the Portuguese church, the first Roman Catholic church in this country, built around the year 1596. In those times, the Portuguese were Catholics, so that's where they worshipped. But when the Dutch arrived, they were not Catholics. The Dutch removed the Roman Catholic tower on top of the church, and they divided the church into two. They used the upper hall as their junior soldiers' mess. Soldiers were drinking and eating up there, and they used the hall below as a marketplace for trading. When the British got in here, they converted the two halls to be classrooms for their policemen who were trained in this castle. But right now, it's a museum. That wall over there with the iron bar on top, we have the same wall here. These are supporting walls done by the Dutch to support the walls of the castle for strengthening. These iron bars we have on top, in the year 1948, the British used Elmina Castle as a police training school. So their policemen were every day climbing them up, down to exercise their muscles. This is an epitaph written in Old Dutch language in memory of a Dutch governor by name Governor van Tetz. Tetz was from Zeeland. Zeeland is one of the provinces in Holland. Governor Tetz was the last Director General of the Dutch West Indies Company. Tetz was responsible over the north and south coasts of Africa. Governor Tetz arrived on 16 January 1758 and he died on 12 March the same year. Tetz died at the age of 41, died of malaria, and Tetz was buried down here. 1758, malaria. While he was here as a governor, there was a Dutch missionary priest resident in this castle by name Andresen. from Viera, a village in Zeeland, in Holland. He wrote the short tributes for Governor Tets. He was describing Tets as honest and God-fearing. It is only the pastor A. Andresi who can explain to us why Tets was God-fearing when we look at the troubles of the captives back in the slave dungeons. Now we are going to compare these two cells. This is the European soldier cell for the stubborn soldiers. Some left the castle without any permission. Some got heavily drunk. They were arrested and brought here for misbehaving. Some also moved to the female dungeons to rape them. But in this cell, nobody died here. There was fresh air from here, fresh air from here, and fresh air from here as well. Nobody died in the cell. Let's check the other cell. Now, this is the condemned cell for the African captives who were fighting for their freedom. Anybody who was brought here died. Here they died because of heat and no water, no food. When you die, they take it up and dump you deep into the sea. These wreaths we have here were brought in to remember the captives, the condemned cell. This is the governor's balcony. This is where he stood to select the female captives he wanted to rape. Let's see the trap door. This is the trap door. Female captives who were selected by the governor walked up here into the governor's bedroom. You see the governor's bedroom now. This is the governor's bedroom. Only with 3 windows. A lot of fresh air. Let's check this area also. These are the living rooms for the governor. This is the governor's washroom. Now, the bedroom, the living rooms, and the washroom in all the governor's apartments for one person. However, as time goes on, the wood is replaced or changed. This is the boardroom where they took all their major decisions. But right now, it's a crack shop. This is another governor's balcony. After the meetings, the governor will stay here and address people downstairs. I was saying that the sea was close to the castle, but right now it has receded. Over there, those 4 pillars are the remains of the jetty where the bigger ships anchored. So smaller boats took the captives from the door of no return and took them over there. They were arranged into those bigger ships and taken away to countries like Europe, America, and the Caribbean islands like Jamaica and Haiti. The structure at the very tip is Cape Coast Castle. When you are there also, you'll see Elmina Castle. This is the officers' mess, dining hall for the senior officers. Now, the floor below is the female dungeon that took the biggest number of women. While the female captives were down there, there was some party up here. This is the governor's kitchen. That is the fireplace, and that is the oven. Most of the cooking were done by soldiers in this castle. The kitchen is 2. This kitchen and the other kitchen over there. Let's see that one also. This is the Dutch Reformed Church where the Dutch worshipped. Up here is a scripture, Psalm 132 verse 14. It is an old Dutch language. And what it means is Zion is the resting place of the Lord, and the Lord stays here forever. But the floor below is a female slave dungeon for the female captives. These are the remains of the original kennel for fighting. Now, the structure up there is Fort St. Jago by the Dutch. The Dutch built it around the year 1665. They kept soldiers inside to watch over the castle for security. A lot of all the houses up there, most of them are stone houses built by the European merchants. These are moats. That is the inner moat, and over there is the outer moat, filled with sea water. Over there is a drawbridge. It was lifted up so that nobody could enter. That square diagram there is a navigational compass with 4 cardinal points, north, south, east, and west for directions. A Dutch brick navigational compass. These are watchtowers done by the Dutch. The Dutch put soldiers on top of them to watch over the castle for security. When the British arrived, they converted this room here and the other room over there to be prisons. In this prison, they kept a popular Asante king by name Nana Akwesi Agyeman Prempeh I. He was held here for 4 years. In the other prison, they kept a popular Asante queen mother by name Ja Asantewa. Ja Asantewa, when she was 60 years old, she led a war against the British to protect the Asante Kingdom golden stool. Because of that, she was captured and held in there for almost 1 year. All of them were now taken into exile in Seychelles Islands. But what happened was, Nana Prempeh was first taken to Sierra Leone before taken into exile in Seychelles Islands. Later, Nana Prempeh was brought back to Ghana and made the king of the Asante Kingdom again. But the queen mother Yasantua, she died in Seychelles Islands. Later, her body was brought back to Ghana and buried.